infinite plane. The world that I live in is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane. I'm doing different things. Yeah, I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Supposed to pull the strings. But they can't fuck with the gang. I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang, man. That's me on mode. I stay more play. Infinite plane society, man. Yeah, man. All I do is black roll out, yeah, just do it, man. Can't take us down on this shit, man. You shake that, check the stats, man. Can't do it, man. Take the word is flat, man. Grow with the whole girl. I think it's down on shit right now, man. Shit, satellites are not real, man. I think satellites are real, man. I don't even know what the fuck it is, man. I rock the Eagles and shit, man. They already got it, man. I'm telling you right now, it's all the hopes, man. All the hopes, man. Shout out, Eagles. What up, bro? Tim out, man. What up, bro? Yeah, man. Shit. I'm up.
Alright everyone, it is August 16th, 2024, Infinite Plane Radio. This is the IPS Evening Deprogram. And this is the anniversary of the death of Elvis Presley at the age of 42. 47th anniversary. Which, here we go, is being talked about in the news today. What was Elvis Presley's cause of death? He was reading a book, and this was told to me by Jurassic Liars. Elvis was reading A Search for the Face of God, and he suggests that the death story was a mockery, as he was sitting on a throne, in a sense, and I believe him on this. Priscilla Presley remembers Elvis Presley's death, 47th anniversary. Fans mourn. Now, he looks nothing like Trump. For those who are thinking that Trump and Elvis are literally the same person, or worse, if you think Bob Joyce is Elvis. You know, there are Elvis sightings all the time. It's been a mainstay of like tabloid publishings like Weekly World News, you know, Bigfoot, Elvis sightings. But I think the death faker phenomenon may have actually started with Elvis. Like, who was spotted after their death? Like, did Elvis start it? But this is interesting. Bob Joyce is a pastor. So you know he's telling the truth because pastors don't lie. And his church, the Household of Faith, is online here. You can listen to his sermons. He plays music. But the QAnoners believe that this guy's Elvis. And not only do they believe he's Elvis, but he speaks at events with the George News guy that is run by JFK Jr. secretly, if you believe them. But here's an image of the guy. And again, he's a pastor, so you should take that in consideration. And he claims to be Elvis. Without saying he's Elvis, he insinuates. As they all do. They never come out and just say, I am Elvis, but they let you run to that conclusion yourself. It's kind of an interesting grift. And then I think I just saw someone else that was important showing, oh yeah, another JFK Jr. contender we'll get to. Lots to talk about, but let's get into monkeypox first. This was tweeted by Vision for the Blind. Yesterday on 8/14, a new TV series starring Vince Vaughn premiered. It's called Bad Monkey. On this exact same day, monkeypox was declared an international public health emergency by the WHO. Now, the timing of this, in coordination with that, is similar to how Thine Ears Shall Bleed, or the Captain America, Civil War. These things come out at the same time as the events. And so the Trump event had these concurrent releases in the movies, and the trailers aligned with the assassination theme. Well, here we have another example of what we call concurrent programming. It's not predictive. It's like predictive programming means it's in the past, but it happens at the same time. So it serves the role of being concurrent, reinforcing, and I think that's the main part of it. It creates an echo chamber effect. They're inserting monkeys. They're downloading monkeys into the collective psyche. They're putting monkeypox out there in many different ways. Now, I may watch this series. I may take a look, just so I can keep up with the predictive programming, because that's one of my jobs here. So those of you who support the channel, you're indirectly supporting Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, just so you know, fair warning. And the reason why is opposition research. Okay, let's see who's joined us. Johann Francis, Messianic Charlatan, Tom Hughes, Diana South, Ollie Goering, King Rivana. God Was Bored says, haha, I just finished listening to your last night's show. Yeah, and that was actually from the night before. Last night we were in Discord for about 2 or 3 or 4 hours talking about the planet killer that's on the way. And I'm not talking about Apophis 44492 or their code. They have these designations. So it's 99942. Apophis, God of Chaos. And they said, it's a planet killer. And it's going to hit us on Friday the 13th in April of 2029. So we have a few years. But what we were predicting here is AH 2024. And apparently its new designation is AH 92824. And this is a world stage killer. But we have the date. It's going to impact in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's just the impact. The real damage isn't what follows. It has its own form of fallout. It'll blot out the sun and all of that. So the Auto Hoax Con is going to happen. And this was a necessary development. We need to get ahead of the PsyOp Entertainment's complex. It has this ability. Just the way that they run the show here is they co-opt everything. The PsyOp Entertainment complex doesn't want to be exposed, so it has its imitations. It has its controlled oppositions, and we don't want anybody to hold a conference based on media skepticism before we do. It's never really been done, because every conspiracy theory conference that has ever occurred has been from the frame of reference that we would call alt media or paranormal, all of it being within the MSM box. So here we are, Outsiders, Auto Hoax Con #1. And it's not an annual thing, that's not enough. So it's #1. If we can do it, we'll do quarterly, if not more frequent. It'll be a live Zoom event, primarily online. I will have the cinematographer here because we're doing a documentary on this very phenomenon and subject. And this is a way to promote Auto Hoaxology 101. But we'll do debate, discussion. We'll have some presentations. I have a lot of content to go through. We'll have a Q&A on the topics of media fakery, psyops, predictive programming, and trutherism. Now, one thing about tickets, because a lot of you support, which I appreciate and couldn't do this without, we couldn't do this without our collective contributions here, but the way I'm doing this is I'm selling tickets to the Zoom conference to fund the production team and anything else like books, literature, anything else to make this go perfectly. But if you're already a member of Patreon or any of these other paid member sites, you will get a link to watch it on the stream, but you won't be able to do the Q&A. You won't be in the Zoom chat. That's the real main advantage there. But no one will be left out because the whole purpose is to create content that has virality. And if you're interested in contributing in any way, we will have, since and we talked about this last night, this is one of the things that we came up with, was that since we're going to have the documentary being produced here, we want to have a lot of visual content that reflects what we're doing. So I'll be open to displaying art, I'll be open to soundtrack contributions, anybody who wants to participate live, even if it's remote. Like I want to invite people to speak remotely at this, obviously JLB and Fakeologist, and I can arrange it with Zoom, so it's not a problem, but I have my contact information there. So that's the first announcement, Auto Hoax Con #1, 9/28/2024, and we're going to directly go after Trump's fake ear piercing. We're going to talk about January 6th, Woo's News. I mean, that's somebody that I would like to get involved as well. Anyone who's taken a deeper look with a completely, I'd say a completely Psywar aware perspective. Because that's what separates the skeptical media from the non-skeptical. The non-skeptical don't include the reality of psyops. They don't account for the fact that news is bent. They are blissfully unaware. No, I won't say blissful, because they say, ignorance is bliss. It's really not. Because the ignorance drives them mad. If you look at how they act, and it's all based on misconceptions and deliberately inserted ignorance, into the public psyche. They've really done a number on us. This sea of irrelevance has most people submerged, but we here are buoyant upon the IPS raft. Another reason to get in front of it, though, is we don't want it to get co-opted. And case in point, this morning, Minds.com which is where I post all my receipts. They posted this. This is from their official account. Is disbelieve by default the new mantra of the internet? Now, it's not, because people selectively disbelieve, but they automatically believe their own side. The mainstream is obviously going to be skeptical against anything else and vice versa. But what they're saying here, disbelieve by default, how is that any different than saying auto hoax? Automatically call it a hoax until it's proven real, fake until proven real. But this is definitely a phrase that I'm going to co-opt. We'll go ahead and take this. Disbelieve by default. It is our mantra. It's our default position. What is the alternative? Believe by default. And we call them auto believers. I'm not mad about it. This is good. These memes need to percolate. The problem is, if they're bandied around by people who are still firmly planted in the MSM box, it's just more noise. And we're all about signal here, which is why we are quarantining away from this, what do you want to call it? I mean, sea of irrelevance doesn't do it justice. It's much worse than that. Okay, let's see who else is piled in here. Okay, it looks like we're doing well. I mean, you know, we almost had 300 people the other night. All right, King Ravana says lean plane. Yeah, we are going to be close to 300 on average by the end of next month, I think. Johan Francis says, I can only tolerate listening to Garrow for a short time. You know, Garrow has come up, he finds some incredible information. He's a Metascript reader. And that's what we're doing here. You know, I call the mainstream a reality wood chipper, and we're a fake news wood chipper. We're cutting down the forest of fakery, and then we're parsing through it all, but we have to do it in a big way. You can't focus on one conspiracy and try to get justice for it. We have to look at the big picture, and that's where conspiracy theorists get caught up. They have 5 or 6 big events, trigger events, and they never let it go. Meanwhile, they're missing the bigger picture. You know, anti-vaxxers fall in this category. Like, they're running around the same fake tree year after year trying to convince everybody it's fake, and yet you may convince a certain number, but the whole forest is fake. Like, you're missing out on the bigger picture. Okay, joined by Estevan says long live IPS. Eddie F says humans can fake all this, but how can people still believe it? Why can we see it? It's hard for me to believe we don't live in some kind of simulation. Well, you know that there are still people who believe in religious myths, chupacabras, Bigfoot. People believe the lies their family members tell them. People are easy to lie to. People are easy to self-deceive. They will lie to themselves. But the idea that people believe stuff easily shouldn't shock you. It's tragic in a way. But what can't people be convinced to believe? Isn't that an expression? Isn't that right out of Brave New? No, what is it? The Merchant of Venice. Something about a statement about what man can be made to believe. I see if I can find that quote. And I'd been referencing a quote from Dune about how they are training people to be believers rather than knowers, because knowledge makes them dangerous and belief makes them controllable. You know, like the Garden of Eden concept, that the tree of knowledge means expulsion from Eden. And in a way, I think that's kind of the case here. All right, let's go ahead and continue. I'm just catching up on the new arrivals. Moneypox, the K is silent, gotcha. And I spell psyops with a $sign, but you can't hear it when I enunciate. Slick Rick 333, new wrench holder, by the way. If you've been commenting, I'm going through and I'm handing out wrenches, so keep commenting. Suzette Ann says, I'm afraid it'll be Trump 2.0 with another pandemic when they make digital ID and currencies mandatory. Yeah, I don't know if any of you noticed this. I hardly could get myself to care about it, but apparently all of our social security numbers here in America have been hacked, and our names and addresses. And this sounds like a setup. This sounds like, I guess, it sounds like they're preparing us, like, you know what, we need to have a better system, like they're crashing it on purpose, maybe destroying confidence in it, because they've entirely destroyed my confidence in plastic debit cards. Every one, it's a different combination, and I know the stores now. I go to the grocery store, I gotta insert, insert, swipe, insert. I go to the dispensary, it's insert, insert, swipe. It depends on the store, but you're constantly messing with these different cards. Some gas stations let me tap, others say go inside and pay, which I don't want to do because I don't like leaving my car alone when I'm walking in, because I've seen too many videos of people getting stabbed and mugged when they're getting gas and they turn their backs. My point is, I'm ready for the chip. Like, chip me already. Put the chip in my hand because I'm done with these stupid cards. And that's probably by design. They've led me that way. This is Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud. This is their work. They know how to influence us indirectly, essentially coercing us in our major life decisions. So I'm ready for the mark of the beast simply out of convenience. And secretly, I kind of hope they do another lockdown because it'll be good for our business. And our business is mass media deconstruction. And you know The Onion, which is a tabloid-esque kind of a parody newspaper, they recently decided to go back into print. And I read an article about them, and they're saying that print is the future. And I think there's a point to it. Everything is so decentralized. Everything gets thrown into the same sea of irrelevance. And I think if you want to have a consolidated message with your network of content creators in your specific niche, you need to get in print. And I've been saying for some time that it's never been better to get into publication. That's why we have the Insider. And that's another point. With the AutoHoax Con, I will have copies of the Insider, the inaugural issue, for the attendees. Eddie F. says in Westworld 4 they use some kind of frequency to keep people hypnotized. Like in They Live. Ms. L says good time for a road trip. Oh, September 28th, 2024. Yeah, I'm not charging admission if anyone shows up here. The idea is a Zoom conference, professionally produced, and I have the room here for it. And I don't know the precise number of people I can fit, but if it gets to be too many, I have a backup. I talked to the owner, there's another office space I can use, a conference room. But I won't discourage anyone from showing up. The people I'm inviting are going to be people who are specifically interested in Q&A, in debating, or presenting their best arguments on these various topics, and many of our guests will be remote. I will also use this as an opportunity to have printed out a lot of the posters that we have, the graphics that show the world model as it is, like the political horseshoe, or the programmed, deprogrammed, and the programmers. These different models we put out just to kind of show how we're boxing people into these categories and why it makes sense. But I need these printed out big. And again, the whole thing is to push Auto-Hoaxology 101. Goddess Board said I just finished 814 and was looking for something to watch. Oh, that's right. I did upload a video. I forgot about that for members. What I'm doing before live streams to give you some time to know what we're going to talk about and to go over your comments, because there's so many of them, it takes me 20 minutes to read them all. I am uploading mostly daily videos on YouTube. Diana South says, low info believers. Yeah, we have to make it, there's this key distinction between us and the people who say pandas are fake. The people who say everything's fake. No. We're not that. We are not knee-jerk. We're not saying that's fake because I feel like it or it looks fake. No, we know why it's fake. We are informed disbelievers. Low information disbelievers are not the same. Similarly, mainstream news consumers are low info believers. Ask them for details about the latest shocking event, major psyop, whether it's a shooting or a terror attack. Ask them for details. Nothing. They just get broad strokes. And that's by design, because it's low info belief. They just outsource their critical thinking to the media producers who provide for them the full picture. Low info believers have less info than we, and we don't believe. And that's because we are fact oriented and we are right and we know why it's fake. They don't. And it's a different operating system. Alright, Thrustazar is here from DLive. Also Lando Rock. Thanks for joining. Okay, I'm going to open up phones here shortly too. Ms. L says I'm watching Evil. Yeah, someone mentioned that the other day. I have a good list of movies to catch up on already. I need to watch the remake of Blade Runner. Suzette says the digital ID and digital currency will come with rationing. Allowed and not allowed items and transactions with social credit scores. The pandemic will be combined with climate change agenda. Yeah, when I was taking a long walk last equinox, I noticed my health app for the first time and that it's been tracking my every step, my every move this entire time. I had no idea. Not that I'm bothered by it. However, when Elon Musk instituted rate limits on Twitter, I knew something was up. They can get you to accept it. You know what? They're going to limit you. You can only look at 6,000 tweets a day. And that bothers me because I am a high consumer of information and I scroll and scroll and scroll. I'm exploring, the world stage, and they want to limit that, but nobody cares because it's like, well, I don't go 6,000 tweets deep. Well, okay, you've accepted the premise that it's limited, so now the infinite plane of tweets is now finite. But just because you can't see the border, it doesn't bother you. It may as well be Antarctica to you. But once you accept the premise, it's like, well, you know what? Your carbon footprint gets a little too hot. You're putting out too much energy. We're going to put it down to 5,000 tweets a day, and then 4,000. And the next thing you know, they're like, you know what? According to this read up here, you walked 5,000 steps yesterday. Would you mind cutting it down to 4,000 for the next 3 days? Like, they're going to regulate your steps and then your breaths. Or they'll tax you, like carbon taxing. Like, you agreed to it. You're like, yeah, cool. Make these big corporations pay for polluting. Well, wait until they make you pay. Like, well, you're not bringing your own oxygen supply, so we can't stop you from breathing, but we can fine you for excessive breathing. And that'll put all these cyclists out of commission. They think they're helping Gaia since they're not driving cars. But no, I see them. They're breathing quite a lot. T Latte says, I still use cash at the grocery store. We have cashless stores here. Some of these drive-ups are cashless. I keep my food budget under control that way. Okay, let's move on. Minds.com again said, is disbelieve by default the new mantra of the internet? And again, it's not. The internet will never adopt skepticism. Alt media will never become skeptical. Remember, they're staring at each other. This is the political horseshoe we're talking about. It's not just a theory. The entire conspiracy theory realm and alt media is on the right side of this political horseshoe. And they are never skeptical about the claims of their own side. It's like almost community-generated fan fiction. Like, they make it up as they go. Like, who's the JFK Jr. of the week? In fact, the one that they're looking at right now is some guy named Edward X. Young. Okay, something else. Hijacked minds, how social media is weaponizing machine learning to wire everyone's brains. Oh, rewire everyone's brains. It's Tim Truth put out this documentary. And it's worth watching if you're interested in intermittent reinforcement and how the social media companies are gaming or rigging the game in the way casinos can. Like the way that slot machines and gambling, it plays into our ability to become addicted to things that reward you on a variable ratio schedule. And I think he's 100% right with regard to how this works. Like, in other words, the way this thing is set up is to addict you, to be a chronic user. And it's not necessarily a healthy addiction, obviously, but I think it makes a bigger point. Because if you're addicted to it, it means you're in a toxic relationship with media. And I think that's true. I think that humanity collectively is in this toxic dynamic, and it is addictive. And I actually wrote out an ebook on the subject. I called it Mass Media as Narcissistic Construct. And my point being is that Big Brother has a personality disorder. And it's by design because the psychologists at work, within this mind control operation know what's beneath our hoods. They know how to get to us subconsciously, and they know how to reduce us into subservient positions where we're always trying to curry favor with the authority. So anyway, good documentary. I put a link on minds.com. I asked Grok, which is X's AI, I said, what is auto-hoaxing? And here's what it said. Auto-hoaxing is the latest trend in human skepticism where you treat every piece of news or information with the same suspicion you'd reserve for a used spaceship salesman on a backwater planet. The concept, auto-hoaxing, is the ultimate skeptic's toolkit. It is the practice of automatically assuming that any news or information, especially from mainstream or online, might be a hoax or misleading. Why it's a thing? Humans have been fed a diet of misinfo, propaganda, and lies for so long that some have decided to flip the script. I like that. Instead of believing everything, they believe nothing till they've seen the receipts. The critics say it's cynicism on steroids. That's not only the thing they say. The critics at the Daily Beast said that we are clear-cutting a forest of information, which is 100% true. But the part they miss is the miss. We are clear-cutting a forest of misinformation, but they don't recognize it as such because they're part of the misinformed class. Goes on to say the cultural impact. This approach has led to a surge in what you might call parallel media, where people create their own narratives and communities where skepticism is required, not just welcomed. It's like if every town had its own version of the Hitchhiker's Guide, but instead of giving you advice, it also fact-checked. The philosophical angle, auto-hoaxing touches on a deep philosophical question about reality, perception, and trust. Anyway, that's not all of it. It goes much deeper, but what's notable here is that I made a point to attach what we're doing to this concept of parallel media. I wanted to be sure that we coined that. And so I rebranded my infiniteplane.media website into parallelmedia.org. And what you'll find is this is probably where it got a lot of its information. This is the manifesto for the parallel media. But we have to have these concepts associated, parallel media and skepticism, because this is the way. By stepping back, socially distancing from the screen, and all of us who do it, we are an entirely different branch of media. We're a third branch. You got your mainstream, you got your alternative. Now there's a platform for those who aren't fooled. But it's notable that Grok has somewhat seen through it. And I'm wondering, is the slimy used spaceship salesman some kind of a reference to Musk? We have an update with Matthew Perry, by the way. Kind of like how Michael Jackson was possibly killed, if you believe the story, by his drug dealer, or Ye has been hooked on laughing gas. Same thing here with ketamine, and there have been arrests. I just started digging into the story, but we can't separate the Matthew Perry story from Leave the World Behind and the subsequent predictive programming. There's quite a lot there to unpack. It ties into Friends, it ties into the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, it ties into a couple of other themes with weirdly with like Batman and some of his tweets, some of the posts he made referencing Batman, Back to the Future, and of course 10/28, his death day, is a holiday in Q-Town because that's the day of the first Q drop. Eddie F says alt media doesn't want you to think the media is completely fake. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, alt media is just alternative shadows on the wall. And there's not an operating system. You see, we are providing an operating system. I'm not telling anybody what to believe, but I am saying that we are applying skepticism and we have disbelief for these reasons. Eddie F says, what do we want from learning all this? Interesting question. Do you want to know what the power elite know? Do you want to know how the multitudes are manipulated and controlled? Like, would you want to be in a theocratic society with a priesthood that dictates the culture, the parameters of thought? Would you want to be in a false worldview, or would you want to be outside of it? I mean, to me, it's like Truman. Like, what does he get from leaving the Truman Show? Like, do you want to be surrounded by liars? Do you want to be a programmable bot, an NPC that doesn't know lie from truth? Like, what are we learning from this? We are solving a philosophical crisis that has been deliberately engineered. I cured your mind aids. That's the point. We are curing this lack of critical thinking that has people emotionally entangled. In fact, it's a loss of peace of mind. I put this at the very intro to Autohoaxology 101. The first skeptics, Pyrrho, his premise was something he called epiche, suspension of judgment, and he said it leads to ataraxia. What is ataraxia? Peace of mind. He said if you don't believe automatically all of the BS that you can't verify until you get more facts, if you suspend it, you'll find yourself in a state of quiescence. They came up with a word for it. This ataraxia, which has connections to hedonism. In other words, joy, fun. Taking yourself out of the mind war is intrinsically rewarding. Do you want to be in a doomsday cult, fire and brimstone, when it's all based on lies? Or do you want to have peace of mind? And then you can look at the psychosomatic effects of believing in things. There are truthers out there dying of chemtrail lung because they've convinced themselves of something. Joined by Deprogram Truther. Yep, Copacetic says, wow, Grok knows what auto-hoaxing is. Yeah, that surprised me. Eddie F says, we can't change the world, we can't convince people, just do what we do to be entertained. I disagree. Has the world always been the way it is right now, going back? Like, I don't think you can make that argument. Are you less ignorant than you were 10 years ago? 15 years ago, I believed in global warming, climate change, aliens. I hoped for it. I believed in the intrinsic evil nature of man, that this is basically a godless world run by psychopaths, and nothing really matters. Like, I understood the nihilism and the moral relativism, and now none of that makes sense to me because I have more information. And the fact that I don't believe in any of the God constructs or weapons of mass destruction, that I can't be intimidated, tricked, fooled, or triggered by the media, that's a big change. And that's just been a few years, and that's been only because of one thing: the availability of information and access to a network of people who are similarly apprised of the fakery. Like, this is intrinsically valuable to assemble this information and come to a clearer picture of what is. But if you're confused or you don't see the point to it, I have to wonder how you even got here. Because the blue pill apathetic types who feel powerless tend to just lose themselves in mindless entertainment. But what we're doing here is we are fomenting this culture of disbelief, which will end up becoming this third branch of media. And it goes much further, but I mean, I can see it. I can see years ahead. I have a fully articulated vision, and I can't even explain it in its entirety because, one, it's impossible to overstate, and two, I don't want to sound like a megalomaniac, even if that's what I am. Let's continue. Eddie F says, we don't know what happened to Truman after he knew the truth. Yeah, we do. He was a false man. He became a true man. He ceased to be gatekept and misled, and he exited the stage. He exited the construct. He entered the real world. So he left the simulation and entered the place outside of it. That is a fundamental shift. We know what happened. He woke up. He stopped being a dupe. He stopped being a fool. And I'm not a fool. I'm not going to be duped, and I'm not going to be triggered. And I'm not going to be bossed around by people that are. Do you want to have some space junk Karen hounding you? Some neighbor, like, put on your space junk helmet. Your helmet protects me, like you did in 2020 with the other thing. Like, no, I don't want to be bossed around by a bunch of mind-controlled extensions. These are tentacles of the big squid alien at the top of this thing. They are the elite. The elite are your Karen neighbor. Well, this is just the term. I don't want to offend anybody named Karen, but this term was bandied about just to describe people who wanted to power trip because you're not conforming to what the black box said. But that's the world we're in. We're outnumbered. And another reason for burning down Trutherville and leaving is that we're outnumbered by truthers. We're outnumbered by people who fabricate information or believe anything at all. Like, you want to talk about mind aids, look at Q-Town. It's not just mentanol and hopium afflicting them. They believe that Vincent Fuchsia is JFK Jr. in a costume. They believe that Donald Trump is JFK and Jesus. in a costume. I mean, they believe anything. They have no filter. Ollie Goering says, what movie was Jim Carrey in after the Truman Show? The Number 23, which was also about the dog star. And he was a dog catcher even. Russell Haig 888 says, years ahead equals profit, prove it. No, when I say see it years ahead, I mean I have a plan. Like what I'm doing right now with my lawsuit. I told Flat Earth Reset and Goldfinch that I would have them in court even if it took me 5 or 6 years. And one of them died, and the other one's about to be caught. Like, this isn't prophecy. You can call the shots. You can make plans. Like, we have plans. Like, what do you mean, prove it? And, I went over to the comments on Odyssey, and I was reading through them, and I saw so many people chastising me. Like, you don't believe in chemtrails? Like, they're mad at me. It's like, shame on you. I'm like, where do these people come from? I'm convinced now that trutherism's a religion. I mean, we can agree that Q is a religion, right? Well, trutherism is a religion. It's like this neo-Gnostic, New Age religion. Okay, continuing. Michelle Castor said, I listened to this show for about 1.5 years before something clicked and I got it. Things become so much clearer. It's kind of like when you leave, and I'm not disparaging people's personally held convictions about the meaning of life, but when you're in a paradigm that you didn't choose, that you never fully questioned, you're in a bubble of some kind, and you have a model. And when you exit it, there's a clear distinction between how you saw things before and how you see things after. There's a process here. When I say deprogramming, I'm kind of referring to the literature on cult deprogramming. And cult deprogramming is very similar to leaving toxic interpersonal relationships. It's all the same dynamics. You have to leave this dynamic that has been established, that this thing is an authority. You have to reject this authority of the screen and instead say, I am the arbiter of what I believe. I am the authority over my own mind. Not CNN, not some blue check, not some government shill propagandist, even if they don't know. Most of them don't know. Eddie F says, how do you not feel jaded? Jaded by what? Like, this is what I don't get. You're coming from a place where you used to believe in all of the bad news. You used to believe in the worst things, that your life is in danger because somebody might press a button and blow you up tomorrow. You're scared of space junk. Go to sleep with the helmet on. You're living in a nightmare universe. And I'm saying all these things are fake. You have no reason to believe it. What do you mean jaded? I'm elated. And if you're not, why not? Do you want to go back to the old world? The dead, rotting corpse universe where you're just an ape with an ego? Imagining things mean anything? The truth is much better. Diana South says, Q is a death cult. Yeah, it is. It's engineered to be such. QAnon is the domestic equivalent of radical Islam. And it was put together by the same people. Look at General Flynn's role in radical Islam and running psyops in the Middle East and what he's doing here. And speaking of psyops, I think Nick Fuentes is going to do some kind of a suicide bombing, mass shooting in Michigan with his army of groypers. He's unhinged right now. Okay, King Ravana says, January 6th, some odyssey to steal one podium. Yeah, January 6th. Do you remember the guy that was stealing the podium? And then you had the guy with the buffalo horns, the guy that smells like roadkill. Oh yeah, the QAnon shaman. And you had a few other pictures, and it looked like it was modeled off of these classical images of the fall of Rome. And it's like, there's no way that's accidental. Then you look at the Trump shooting, where it looks like Braveheart. It looks like the monument from the War Memorial, the Marine War Memorial, where they're raising the flag. It looks like that for a scene, for a shot. And then it looks, I mean, it's just like these major events are PR stunts. They really are. Rasal says, echo chambers are cults. This is an echo chamber. No, it's actually not. The echo chamber is the world stage that doesn't allow a full spectrum view of what we're examining. They don't let you talk about special effects or fakery. And Trutherville is not critical of its own side. And you are a chemtrail huffer, and I'm not trying to be rude about it, but if you believe in chemtrails, you're still in their box. You're still falling for certain logical fallacies. So no, this is not an echo chamber. This is an open platform. I've taken so many calls from people who disagree with me all the time. We get people all the time calling in to defend whatever. So no, you cannot call this an echo chamber. That's insane. Violet Pengon says, Rasal Haig 888, what are you so mad about? People get mad when you tell them the truth, because the truth is good news. And maybe it's, I don't know why actually. Can anyone explain this to me? Like you tell someone, hey, nobody died at that shooting. And they're like, you should be killed for that. Like people will want to kill you for saying that this fake event is fake. You're telling them good news and they get mad at you. You know, on CNN, I once heard one of these talking heads, they said, these people who are saying school shootings aren't real, we better watch them because they might do a school shooting. Like that makes zero sense. Well, to me, which means it makes total sense to CNN viewers. Rasal Haig 888 says this is a limited hangout. No, this is not a limited hangout. This is an unlimited hangout, and it's uncontrolled opposition. But you notice, I'm not banning you, even though you're going against what I'm saying, because this is not a limited hangout. In fact, nothing you say can change the facts. Nothing you say can make chemtrails real, can make nukes real, or can make any of the world stage dramas real. I'm anti-anti. I'm anti-pro. We're conscientious objectors, peaceniks, ivory tower. You know, we're not engaged. It's a pigsty on both sides. I mean, it's like George Bernard Shaw, never wrestle with a pig. You both get muddy and the pig likes it. Well, within the political horseshoe is this vast pool of mud. We call it the Sea of Irrelevance, but it's really a mud flood. It's been mud flooded. Rasal 888 says, I'm not against you, I question you. Well, I think what we have certain discrepancies or differences of opinion. Like, I'm not a solipsist. You know, you called in the other day and you said we all have our own reality, and I hear these things and I'm like, again, I have to return to this. Simulation theory was purposefully injected into the mainstream to hide fake news. Again, simulation theory is not the result of people saying, whoa, I experienced a glitch in my reality. No, it's they're looking at stuff on TV. They're looking at stuff in the movies. They're looking at discrepancies in the news, or rather eerie coincidences, predictive programming, and they're saying, this means we're in a simulation. That's what Joe Rogan says. And it's like, no, I don't agree with Joe Rogan on this. I mean, you may. I don't know why you would, but simulation theory 100% is a guardrail so you don't notice the news is simulated, that they're presenting a simulated version of events that they pre-scripted. And they do this so many times. Like, what I'm saying is based on facts. I mean, you can't even, it's inarguable. You want to present to me some theory that explains predictive programming and concurrent programming without accounting for the deliberate effort of human agency to synchronize the two? To synchronize entertainment propaganda with news propaganda? Like, we predict predictive programming here. I'm like, hey, I'm going to watch this movie so I can unpack the messaging and see how it feeds into the current narrative. And it always does in uncanny ways that couldn't happen if it wasn't planned way in advance. Fly Me to the Moon had multiple references to Boeing and Apollo 1 and explosions and fire. And that movie was presumably recorded before Boeing had all its recent disasters. Ollie Goering says chemtrails are boring, vaccines are boring, Mandela's boring. Exactly. Anything without evidence, it's like, this is not a paranormal chat room. I mean, you can bring stuff up, but we're evidence-based. Like, I have this rule: you don't get to present your theory about how cloud seeding is going to kill us all unless you have some kind of video evidence. Like, don't tell me you've seen the space station unless you have a video of it. Don't tell me you've seen toxic clouds over your house unless you have video. Or Saul says you don't return emails. I don't have a lot of time outside of the time I squeeze in for this. I really don't, but I'm working on it. I do now in the mornings, but I'll look up your email. I remember your email. I saw the headline, and let me bring it up. I believe you were saying that there is no distinction between knowledge and belief. And I said these things are two different categories. I am rejecting belief and believers. That is what you said. You said knowledge and belief are not mutually exclusive. One can know yet not believe, or believe without knowing. Like, that's semantics. I didn't have anything to say to that. My distinction here is important, though. The programmed class are believers because they don't have access to knowledge, because they have outsourced perception. If your head is up against the screen, or worse, through the screen, you're outsourcing a great deal of your perception. You're not the arbiter of what you believe. Somebody else is. I've stepped out of it. Like, I'm truly a non-believer. Ask me anything. Eddie F says, life is becoming boring. How? Call in. And he says, when do we see any of this fake reality being confronted? It's never going to be if we don't. I mean, Autohoax Con #1, 9/28/2024, Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's the first time. Nobody's confronting it. Eddie F says, if it's not a simulation, why don't we see any randomness? When you say it's a simulation, what do you mean? Like, nothing's real? I said this in chat in our Discord, no, in our Gilded. If I believed this was a simulation, my priorities would be different. It's like, well, what difference does it make if news is fake? If reality's fake? Same thing goes for the Mandela effect. If I was a Mandela effectee, I'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to bother trying to come to some objective version of reality because there's no objectivity. Everything's subjective. I might wake up tomorrow and I'll have a Pikachu tail. You know, they say this, body changes. You know, Pikachu used to have a tail, then he doesn't, or was it George the monkey? But they will say these things. They'll say, oh, my heart moved, my liver moved, there's more holes in my head. Like, if you haven't heard about it, the Mandela body changes. And there was one guy in his car talking about a certain body part that changed. I had to turn that one off. But look, again, I have no use for simulation theorists. If you can prove to me when a simulation, show me your evidence. And I'm also tired of giving too much credence to people who claim that their belief manifests as reality, because it ignores the fact that mass belief has no effect on reality. That's why we call out fake news. The masses believe the fake news. Does it make the events real? Last time I checked, the Sandy thing isn't any realer, even though it has mass belief, and even Alex Jones believes it. The moon landings are still fake. Everybody believes those. Slick Rick says, can you unban G33? I possibly can. The reason I think we didn't is that we're trying to prevent disruption. See, this is advanced media deconstruction. The IPS, Institute for Advanced Media Deconstruction, presumes that you're on the right side of the screen. And if you're a media advocate, like if you're still claiming people died on 9/11, then you have a lot of catching up to do. Or if you have no interest in catching up, then you're a media advocate. And what's the point of being a media advocate? You think CNN's going to call you up? Hey, I heard you on Infinite Plane Radio. Thanks for sticking up for our bullshit propaganda. Thanks for defending the lives of fake dead people and their honor. Like, no, nobody's going to thank you for defending them. It's like you're an unpaid crisis actor. There's no point to it. It's shameful behavior. It's Stockholm Syndrome. You know, you don't have to be in love with Big Brother anymore. Big Brother can take care of himself. Eddie F says, in Season 4 of Westworld, they use frequency on the population to keep the bots in line. Do you think they use something like that? Maybe it's the screen. It is the screen. Is there anything else in the world today that has everybody synchronized? Now, in the past, it was religions. You know, they're all based on the astrotheological template, which aligns us synchronistically in timing. Think about how every year at New Year's, during the countdown, the whole world is counting down. We're all synchronized, and we're all watching the same screens, and we're all harvesting, or rather counting down to 10 as the dog star begins its annual descent. So it's a kind of a covert ritual in a way, if you look at how everyone's involved in it. But I'm just pointing out that long before mass media, the masses have been synchronized around holidays, all these pagan holidays. It's always been the same, and it's the same priesthood. Is it any different? You know, the Super Bowl is a good example of this. All these events or these big psyops are examples of how we're all synchronized. And it's never been like that before. Or rather, before, you had some synchronization in worldview with all these different religions that had certain common denominators, but it's never been more synchronized than it is right now this minute. 9/11 proves it. 2020 proves it. And the fact that they have uniformity of mind war everywhere. It's not like there are any countries resisting. There are no countries that are exempt from being psyoped for having to have this obligatory belief in what's happening, because these things are done with the full authority of the government. Every psyop involves police, fire departments, EMTs, hospitals, politicians. It goes all the way up. These are top-down events. That's why it's not effective to call them hoaxes. A hoax it sounds like a local thing. Like, oh, this group here did this hoax. No, these hoaxes are signed up on from the very top. These are the main things. These are the main events. Ironically, the hoaxes are realer than what you do in your life. Because what you do in your life is not going to be in the history books. The stuff that I'm doing is going to be burned. The hoaxes are going to be carved into stone. Those become real. And they're tantamount to contemporary myths. I would call 9/11 a contemporary myth. Like a modern day crucifixion in a way. It's something that galvanizes the population in a certain way. It goes down in all the history books, and it's a turning point in history that we all take. We all took this turn. We all went to the moon. We all experienced the terror of the atom bomb and ducting covered. So these are collective transformative psyops. And when we're talking about perception management, think Edward Bernays, think Sigmund Freud, we are talking about long-term engineering of mass behavior. And as far as I know, like 25 years ago, walking around staring at your phone wasn't a thing. Even with flip phones, it wasn't like people were locked into it the way they are right now. This was gradual, and then it accelerated. But the power elite, whatever, realized that to do 1984, you don't have to put cameras surreptitiously in every house and spy on people. No, you change the culture. You train them en masse to not value privacy. In fact, to commodify everything that is private and make it public. They've reversed everything. Okay, continuing. Yeah, anybody who thinks the nuke is real, prove it to me. Prove it. Upload a video of a duck and cover. Because if I believed in nukes, I would have a duck and cover strategy. I'd be like, yeah, if there's a nuke, I'm going to go under that table. I'm going to get on my hands and knees. I'm going to grovel. I'm going to duck and cover. And I'll face the TV so I can watch it. Leave the world behind is an anagram for behold the end war live, which is what you see in the end. When Rose is watching TV and then you see the nukes and everything, it's like, okay, when the world ends or the next major thing, we're going to be at home. We're going to be watching it live. We won't be experiencing it live, like in the Meatverse. Okay, let's see. Ollie Goering says, oh yeah, that's right. G33, you called in drunk a few times, disparaged Tim. You probably don't remember. And it's not that I mind being disparaged. I think he was just drunk and talking too slow, and Trump had just been shot, and it was a fast news day, and we didn't have time for it. And calling in saying, what are you talking about? Well, maybe you should check the chat first. And it's not because of me. Like, I'm extremely patient. I'll talk to anybody. But it's for the benefit of the chatters. If we have 300 people in chat, there are people who will tune out if we're not doing the nightly data dump. Lord Laney says, white noise train wreck happening in the same town the movie was filmed at, with the same extras being affected. Meta scripting crisis clowns, not divine, just Ped Mason Psy opera. Yeah, you nailed it. And that happened in Palestine, Ohio, which I suggested was predictive of a toxic airborne event in Palestine, which we haven't seen yet. But more recently, there was this article by the Washington Examiner that said that the most important 42 miles in this election is the place from Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump was shot, to Palestine, Ohio, where you had this mushroom cloud, both in the movie White Noise and in real life. So 42 Trump head wound and nuke. There's something there. Ohio has a great deal of significance. It's the heart of it all. That's its slogan. So think of it. It's the heart of America. Well, what is Israel and Palestine? We're talking about like hearts of a nation, very symbolic places. So I saw that as some interesting foreshadowing. And one other point, the mass media even noticed this because I've interviewed him, the conspiracy author. Oh, he's anti-conspiracy theory, Mike Rothschild. I interviewed him when I was with Dark Matter, and he said predictive programming doesn't exist. Then white noise happens, and the mass media says, oh, this is an eerie coincidence. Then InfoWars, what do they say? They said, oh, it's a example of revelation of the method. Dark occultists have to tell us what they're going to do. What they leave out is that nothing was done, that it's a hoax. In fact, Watchdog went over there. One of our press pass carriers went over there. It was a big nothing was going on. CNN, after derailment, Ohio residents are living the plot of white noise based on Don DeLillo's novel. The family evacuates Ohio home after a train crashes. Did the movie White Noise predict the Ohio derailment? It seems the Netflix movie White Noise somehow, eerily predicted the train derailment earlier this month. The fiery crash and the fictional blockbuster share the same details. New York Post, deadly Ohio train derailment eerily predicted Netflix. Scary. So what do you have to say about this, Mike Rothschild? And every time there's a predictive programming event that's completely obvious, I hit him up, and he always ignores me. And it's because it's above his pay grade, beyond his understanding. He's locked in the box, because he's in Normieville. He's very critical of alt media, very critical of Q, but he has no insight into his own side or into the model that he's in. And that's not a place I would want to be. I wouldn't want to be that brainwashed to where I can't discern real from fake, that I can't tell that if I couldn't, it's not, to me, it's like, it's almost sad at this point. How a Netflix movie predicted the Ohio train derailment. Because the information's there. Even Grok knows. Grok knows about auto-hoaxing, and Mike Rothschild doesn't. Though not... Okay, here goes. Yeah, this is a creepy coincidence. Creepy coincidence. Netflix film has eerie comparison to toxic Ohio crash. I'll play some clips if you want. There are just too many of these articles. Eerie similarities, eerie parallels. Eerie comparisons. Film extras. See similarities. One resident. Yeah, exactly. Yet overlapping crisis actors with actors. But here you have the media noticing it, and they don't have the framework to understand it. They just have to say, oh, it's just a coincidence. And this is another axiom. I should probably write this one down. There are no coincidences on the world stage. This is an example of the synchronization between entertainment and news. Just like that Vince Vaughn monkey movie that just came out, on time for the monkeypox, on the same day. These are coordinated. This is how they synchronize your pre-programmed, post-hypnotic, suggestion-filled subconscious with the news events. And I see truthers running around, how dare you call it fake? Look at all these dead fish. Everybody's going to die. I'm like, those crisis actors. Crisis acting isn't just humans. You got crisis acting donkeys, crisis acting fish. We've seen it all. There's CGI, if anything. But nobody died. Now again, we know what this is. This isn't a supercomputer, or there's no way man could have scripted this. This isn't the demiurge. God didn't do it. Satan didn't do it. No. The people behind Mind Control Central synchronize it all. It's called entrainment. Your mind, if you still believe this is real, like Mike Rothschild, his mind has been entrained to the propaganda. Like he doesn't have a way to even fight against it. His head's in the box. Lean Dion says it's always a bizarre or eerie coincidence. Exactly. And we know it's not an eerie coincidence. Like we know how it works. The fact that we know how it works is a big deal. Like this is a major leap forward for truth kind. Slick Rick says nukes are weapons to keep the peasants in fear. Yeah, in fact, let me bring this up. There was something that was posted in Discord. In fact, it was by Lean Dion posted something, and then I found something like 5 minutes before that was like the exact same sentiment. So he posted this from the Atlantic. And we know Atlantic's history with predictive programming. Let me just pull this up really quick. If you're not following the Twitter channel where we broadcast live, it's twitter.com/IPS think tank. Now, it's a raft right now, but as of September 28th, it'll be a tank as it gets mobilized and moves across the land. So here you have it, the Atlantic. There's Trump's ear clipped before he was shot. You have the very spot, the quote lobe of his ear as he describes it, the very top. So this is the Atlantic. So now returning to this, the Atlantic put this out, what the pandemic simulations missed, and why it's the perfect time to roleplay the next one. And the illustration has a couple of chess pieces with COVID heads. Make of that what you will. But what the simulations missed, roleplay the next one. And here's what I found regarding nukes. Lynn Tommen put this out. No matter how nuclear war begins, it always ends in war games. This is from Ann Jacobson, national security expert. No matter how a nuclear war begins, whether NATO's involved or not involved, if China's involved or not, no matter how it begins, it always ends in war games, in nuclear Armageddon. But war games is the part that stuck out to me. Ann Jacobson. Okay, moving on. Autohoaxology axiom number 38. If they can trigger you, they can control you. If they can trigger you, they can control you. And I'm going to update the list of axioms. I'm going to publish a comprehensive list and make that available at the AHCon. Mass media psyops are designed to trigger reactions in those appropriately saturated with predictive programming. Like, how many of you are still ducking and covering when you see mushroom clouds? How many of you are still masked or wearing helmets for space junk? How many of you take your carbon footprint seriously and recycle? The Greek philosophers defined skepticism as epike, defined as a suspension of judgment, as a principle proposing that when controversy arises, an attitude of non-involvement should be adopted to gain peace of mind. So don't feed the trolls. Mass media trolls for reactions. You got engagement bait, clickbait, rage bait is very hot right now. Rage bait. The mass media is trolling for reactions. If they control you, they can control you. And I spell control with 2 L's. I suggest you do the same. It's a portmanteau. And I think that term was even invented by Lewis Carroll, which is a combination of 2 words, both the letters but also the meaning of the words. And so control and troll, because their version of control is by eliciting reactions and then rewarding or punishing you, depending on what kind of reaction they're able to elicit from you. Okay. Yeah, Carroll coined it in 1882. Okay, let's move on here. This is where it's at. It says that it's fishy. What is fishy? Oh, there's somebody here who's banned and is probably talking up a storm, and I can't see him on the screen. So you might just want to call in. Eddie F says, off topic, did humans just arrive here or did we evolve from something? Good question. Rasal says non-involvement can be avoidance. No, by non-involvement, what they're meaning is like, okay, somebody tells you, hey, the Seattle Space Needle fell. Now what do? Do you cry? Do you weep? Do you donate to GoFundMes? Do you send flowers? Or do you say, let me check the facts? Or no, here's another one. Oh, this is so sad. Jussie Smollett, yep, a couple of MAGAs just lynched him in a park at 3 a.m. He was on his way to Subway. They lynched him, N-worded him, and covered him in bleach. Terrible. What are you going to do? You going to go riot? You know, go speak out, rage about it, cry about it? You know, that's what I'm saying here, is that by not getting involved until you have more facts, you're not being played. Because everybody who believed that Jussie Smollett was lynched got played, because it was a hoax. It was revealed later. So when it comes to any event, non-involvement means not involved until you have facts. Like there's no discrepancy here. And if you're trying to argue against what I'm saying, then tell me, what's the benefit of mindlessly believing with low info every piece of bad news that comes across your feed? Like, I'm not a doom scroller. Where Saul says you lack conviction. I don't know what you're here for. And I'm open to rational debate, but I kind of think that you're a chemtrail believer. And chemtrail believers fall for, and I'm not trying to knock it, but I'm demonstrating something here. The reason why we have to quarantine is we can't let emotional minds dominate. And we're outnumbered. And look, every take, MSM take, MSM plus take, conspiratorial take is emotional. You can't tell me otherwise. If it's rooted in fear, if it's rooted in moral panic or panic-demic, if it's fear-based mind control, if it's fear porn, guess what? It's emotion-based. If it's tapping into your fear of running out, scarcity, it's fear-based. And I'm not reacting. I'm non-reactive because I don't have enough information to react. They've cried wolf too many times. Every time somebody cries wolf, do you go run out there? I don't. All right, he says you're demonstrating avoidance. No, I don't owe you. I don't have to take your call. I'm not your therapist. So you can go ahead and go away if you accuse me of censorship. I'm the last person to accuse of censorship. I mean, we've been targeted by a government-connected, very wealthy, media-connected, Joe Rogan-connected hacker. A pretty well-renowned hacker. Nobody knows who he is, but this is a very famous hacker in a way, or soon to be infamous. So to say that I'm involved in censorship is crazy. This channel has been taken out, demonetized more than 150 times. I've sued YouTube 3+ times. I've had many of my podcasting platforms, like Spotify, we had 4,000 subs. I monetized it. It got pulled. So no, we've been censored more than any other channel I can name. But I don't use that as the basis for this platform. Like, oh, poor us, we're being censored. No, I mean, we're not victims. We don't have victim consciousness here. We're targeted with good reason because they know what we're going to do. But anyway, nice having you in here. I'm not really interested in ill-informed critics. I mean, if you have something substantive, write it down. Write a blog. Violet Penguin says, trolls come out tonight. Must be Elvis sent them. Yeah, I was wondering, do I send flowers to Bob Joyce? I mean, this is Elvis. It's his death day. How does he celebrate it? August 11th, he was doing baptisms at the Hot Springs Convention Center. Yeah, not only do people believe he's Elvis, but George Magazine has him at events. And so you got Elvis and JFK Jr. in the house. That is the most unlikely Elvis I've ever seen. Not even close. What a grifter. But he's a pastor, so he gets a pass, I guess. Like, don't these pastors have to pass a test? Like, isn't there a license for this? Like, do they have to abide by at least 70% of the 10 Commandments? Because I see all kinds of people breaking these rules. Bearers of false witness, lies, covetous people. Okay, let's see here. Ollie Goering says, IPS, do you feel generous tonight to unban G33 if he misbehaves? I don't know how to unban, to be honest. I would have to know I would have to take some time. I could possibly be persuaded, but I never banned someone without reason. There must have been a reason. And we have been targeted, this channel has been targeted with what I think are operatives who try to dilute what we're doing or who try to destroy the sense that we know what we're talking about. Like, here we are doing an objective-based breakdown of the media based on facts, and then we get callers, we used to get a lot of them, who would want to talk about, racial purity and white genocide, and it's like, I don't care about those issues. Like, those are fake issues. And so the fake issue crowd comes in, and I'm happy to entertain it for the purposes of deconstructing their bad arguments, but we know where they're coming from. But we're past that now. This is the point where the raft has to quarantine. Because if we say, let's just let the chemtrail crowd in here, we will be outnumbered 100 to 1. Now, you can always create a new account on YouTube and then come back in with a different name. That's the easiest way to go about it. But Again, I'm not here to ban people, and I don't even call it censorship. If you call it censorship, then you don't know what censorship means. Censorship refers to, it's basically like free speech. Like, I'm not anti-free speech because I block somebody on YouTube. No, I'm pro-quality control. And from the very beginning, this channel has been about keeping out certain attitudes and behaviors. Specifically, no Bible thumping, no model pushing, no political agendas. Like, we're fact-based. We have a multi-million piece puzzle. It's huge. I can't do it on my own. It requires all of us. And we can't be distracted by people who aren't involved in putting the puzzle together, or people who don't know there is one. They don't know it's a puzzle. Naysayers, media advocates, we had no place for them. It's like, you can't sit with us. And then the question I have is, why would you want to be here? I wouldn't want to go, like, let's say I was a believer in some church or something, a fundamentalist church. I wouldn't want to hang out in a room full of atheists. And if you're a media believer, what we're saying might hurt your feelings. Fake dead people's lives don't matter. Does that trouble you? There's no such thing as fill in the blank thing that scares you. We're here to get rid of hyperstitions, superstitions, propaganda. Terror propaganda. Like, are you afraid of the planet killer asteroid that's going to kill you in 5 years? Why not? You don't believe the science? Are you digging a bunker? Ugh, I changed my mind, Tim. Yeah, I'm not taking it. And another thing too, look, I'm not trying to diagnose, but the first few times he called, it was very lovey. Hey, brother, I love you. And anytime somebody puts you on a pedestal and they don't know who you are, you have to be very suspicious, because it's a strategy. What happens is, it's a manipulative a tactic of manipulation, where you put somebody that you want to manipulate on a pedestal, and you throw all kinds of praise at them, a lot of flattery, and then later, if they don't do what you want, you pull them down, and it's supposed to hurt more because you held them in higher regard. So it's important not to invest in the opinions of people who don't have enough information to actually know. And when I saw that pattern, where one day he was nice, the next day he was crazy, I saw the back and forth, I'm like, okay, I get enough of this in my real life. I'm not going to get it from rando callers. Like, I'm sure you can find people in your own life to emotionally manipulate. Or maybe that's why you came online. Maybe you've tapped out everyone. You're not getting any more supply from your local area. You're in a desert of attention, and so you're reaching out. Diana South, exactly, like Johnny Circucci, the Jesuit chaser. He told me he loved me. Like after a podcast, he literally said, I love you. Like, we had this great talk. And then the next day, he put out videos describing how I was an evil Mason and he was going to send his flying monkeys to investigate me and never trust me again. I'm like, what happened? Well, obviously one of his handlers, the Fed that pulls his strings, gave him a call. And then, yeah, he went from loving me to hating me. And I was already suspicious. Eddie F says, we can't let the insane into the raft. Well, they can swim out here, but they won't make it to the raft. Like, we don't even have to push them off. If you're weighed down by any blue pill, black pill, red pill, you're not going to be buoyant. You're going to sink into the sea of irrelevance. The only pills we have on board here are white. And it's all good news. And I would also advise, because we did ban, what's his name, Upside Down Head. I would advise against anybody deciding that they want to have a personal crusade against me. And I can show you an example of what happens to people who've gone that far. Just so you know. I've pushed people. And we've dealt with people. And one of them's dead. Not my fault. One of them had to seek psychiatric help. And I have proof, because he actually sued me for $642,000. Sued me for emotional distress, which is hilarious because you just admit, oh, you hurt my feelings, which means I won. And this was someone who tried to destroy me. He was anonymous. I doxed him. He never got over it. And he wasted $30,000 on attorneys trying to stop me. And what's going to happen here is I'm suing back. I'm countersuing for malicious prosecution, because that was a retaliation lawsuit. He had no business suing me after I dropped my suit against him. And this lawfare stuff doesn't bother me at all. So if anyone thinks that they're going to somehow overcome me in some way, it's not going to happen by trolling. It's not going to happen with lawfare. So you'll have to figure it out. But it's not going to work. I mean, I wrote a counter-stalking manual. You know how many stalkers that ran from me? Like, I reversed the dynamic. You stalk me, and next thing you know, well, I don't want to say. I don't want to sound like Hannibal Lecter. Constant elevation is sending out email alerts. Oh, yeah. Email alerts go out via Patreon and the newsletter ips.monster. And let me double check. And yes, they did go out. Soon will be budgeted again for text message alerts. I'm trying to be consistent. You know, I'm trying to, for everyone's convenience and to get the best numbers, I'm finding that it's actually better if I start even earlier. And one other note, we're now talking daily in the Discord chat in the IPS press room. And this is a opportunity to get involved in the organizing of it, or if you want to speak at it. But it's also a time to chat with a lot of the other people in here in voice. So the other night, or yesterday, no, it was last night, we had like 10 or 15 people in there. And I expect it's going to continue to grow like that. So again, if you want to be in any way involved as a press pass carrier, involved with the Insider or anything like that, just go to ips.monster, get in the Discord server, and we'll be, again, more active there. Okay, let's continue here. We are, again, advertising AutoHoaxCon for 9/28. And just to make it easy, so I don't have to mention it very often, if you go to ips.monster, I put the flyer on top with a link to the tickets. So if you want to get the tickets, this is for the online Zoom conference, which is going to be from 12 to 7 p.m. And that's going to be, again, late September. Donna South says, the Capitol Police called me once and threatened me with a cease and desist for contacting my state senator. Okay, moving on. Hoax Me Softly says, John Levy loves everyone. John Levy, the Mudflutter. Now, I like his work, but I think largely it's based on an argument from incredulity. Like, I can't see how they made this beautiful building, therefore, Antiquitech. Ancient civilizations with a greater understanding of things and 3D printed cathedrals. Like, they don't go to architects. They don't get the blueprints. They don't talk to the people who would be involved in building such a structure. And they talk about, why don't we make buildings like this anymore? It's like, well, because we like air conditioning and plumbing and comfort. Eddie F says, John wants donations. Well, he's heavily invested in his historical model, which has false evidence propping it up. Like, basement windows exist because basements are dark and they didn't used to have electricity. It's not because a mud flood came in and raised the land everywhere by like 6 feet or something. As cool of an idea as that is. I like the idea of history being literal stories, you know, like layers, like in a building, but beneath the ground. Oh yeah, you go down 50 feet, you're into this other completely different world before they rebooted everything and rewrote the histories. Like the idea of a reset every couple hundred years, where every couple hundred years the elite think, hey, the masses are getting too uppity. Let's liquefy the soil, drown them all, and then we'll repopulate with our own. And then they send out these trains full of orphan children to repopulate. Like, it's an interesting idea. It reminds me of a couple of movies, like the 100, about the space ark, because the AI called Ellie destroys the world with nukes because man's going to destroy it with climate change. So she gets rid of man, but they have they have a couple of these space arks is what they call them, where they have 100 teenagers who are then dropped down onto the earth to multiply. That was just one example of this recurring theme. Morning from London says 360 pick. Plain Dakota says Tim has powers. Well, I'm a good fisherman. It's as far as, like, I'm not a hacker. You know, Marcus Goldfinch is a hacker, but I'm a fisher. as in a fisher of men, P-H-I-S-H-E-R. And I'm able to find out things through fishing, and I learned fishing as a telemarketer. I think out of all the different jobs I did, the most valuable may have been telemarketing. And it's a black art. Like, it's black magic, basically. And things are different now, but I worked on contracts. I was at this place called West Telemarketing in El Paso. So at one point I was in the Army, Fort Bliss, Texas, and then I just got out and I started doing all these telemarketing gigs. And I got this one at this company where we were cold calling people who had recently taken out large loans, student loans, and we were getting them to consolidate their loans, take advantage of some federal rate drop. But the goal was, you're going to make all these calls, but in order to get a commission, you have to get their social security number on the first contact. And that's not something you can do easily these days. Social security number and driver's license number. So I had to win their confidence. And it was all about the verbiage. And what they did was, because there were 6 of us out of the group, out of the entire pool of callers, there was 1,200 workers there, and the best performing in each of these groups were brought in to be a part of this specific campaign, and I was one of them. And they studied what we were saying to see what it took to elicit this information from strangers. And one of the things I explained was, you can't say, what's your social security number? Nobody would give it to you. But what you can say, once you have a rapport going and you retell them info you already have. Okay, so just to re-verify, your address is, and you get them nodding and saying yes. Maybe you mispronounce it, you have them correct it. And then you say, okay, and your social is? And if they're in the flow of divulging info, and you say, and your social is, they start to drop the numbers. And if they drop the first couple digits, you get it all. Sometimes they hesitate and you lose it, but it was all about the framing and leading them. So and if you can get that, I already gave you my social, well, here's my birthday, here's my driver's license. They'd be very open, and then they would happily call back to the confirmation guy and get the final documents to get the sale. And it was a nice gig, but it would be like 100 calls a day, and maybe out of the 100, I'd get 1 or 2 people who would give me that information, but it was enough to move the thing forward, and we improved it over time. But anyways, my point is, it was fishing. And I'm bringing this up because in the counter-stalking guide, I have some strategies for phishing if you're trying to dox an anonymous person. Slick Rick says, what's your opinion on Epstein Island PSYOP? I think it's a PSYOP. I think that the whole entire narrative with Ghislaine Maxwell, it's all soap opera and fake. I really don't think any of it's real. And it's ridiculous. It's like, who went on Epstein Island's plane, the lists, and what did they supposedly do? It's like, it's just too much. It's too much QAnon lore. They take too much for granted, but no evidence has surfaced. And sadly, the whole area of research, this Epstein Island Q stuff, they began manufacturing their own fake evidence. Like, I've seen images purported to be Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin playing ping pong while wearing the faces of dead children. Like, that's fake. And they make up the fake stuff and they justify it because they assume it's true, I guess. But I haven't seen anything to make me think there's really anything to the Epstein Island story. I mean, there are some fascinating things, like one, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Barr. You know Donald Barr, the father of A.G. Barr from Trump's administration? Yeah, Donald Barr worked at the same school. He hired Epstein. And Donald Barr wrote some very bizarre, sick books. One of them was called Space Relations, an interplanetary gothic tale about teenage sex slaves held on small planets. Doesn't that sound exactly like Epstein Island? And then it gets even weirder because there's this STD called the Epstein-Barr virus. And the Epstein-Barr virus has one of its symptoms, one of its effects, it's called the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which creates time and space distortions. And I think this is all very ominous and interconnected. But even though there's this intriguing story behind it all, and it seems to make sense, and it opens up a lot of rabbit trails, I think ultimately it's probably fake. Like Ghislaine Maxwell was photographed with Elon Musk, and he claims that they were photobombed at some Vanity Fair event. She claims that she told him, "You must destroy the internet before it destroys us all," which apparently he's doing, if you look at X. Ollie Goering says, if Epstein Island is real, then white hats don't exist, and no one's saving the children. Yeah, good news. There's no white hats, because there's no need for them. Because what the white hats were doing was fake. I remember a friend of mine, a former friend, turned into a Q person. And they said to me, don't you care about the children? Those children are being trafficked and harvested and satanically slaughtered, and their blood's being drunk, being imbibed by the Democrats. Don't you care about the children? And what am I supposed to say? No. No, I don't care about the tunnel children. And for people who are very emotional, like they were, they watch these documentaries that the QAnons make, they get super emotional, and now, if you don't believe the Epstein thing, if you're not with Trump, you're not saving the children. It's kind of like Kramer not wearing the AIDS ribbon. Like, why aren't you wearing the AIDS ribbon? Don't you care about AIDS? And he's like, yeah, I just don't want to wear the ribbon. Because you want me to wear the ribbon. And they pressure you. And that's how it was. Don't you want to save the children? Hey guys, this guy doesn't want to save the children. Oh, what are you, a pedovore? So you get coerced into it. Anyway, I'm glad that Q is done. If it's not done, if the white hats are real, they better speak up like really soon. If there's not a great awakening like in the next 2 weeks, it's just not going to happen. But the money for it, the money that artificially props Q up, is going to run out after November the 5th. It won't have any function after that. Unless Trump loses again, or if it's stolen, whatever. If that's the story, then you'll see Q hanger-ons who will say, oh no, he is still president. It's just very secret, wink wink. And they play these games where they say that it's all a show, but they know and the truth's not for everybody. There's so much copium in Q-Town. It's not just the hopium, it's the copium. They will do mental somersaults. They'll bend over backwards. They will create user-generated fan fiction, anything, to avoid the facts that don't comport with their fantasy. Okay, let's continue. Diana says, the QAnon smile when they describe military tribunals and executions. They're a death cult. Oh, they do. They want to see it on TV. The QAnoners are drooling over the prospects of Ellen DeGeneres and Tom Hanks being decapitated on primetime TV, with Trump watching on. Then they want to see Hillary Clinton burned at the stake. They want to see Bill Clinton drawn and quartered. I think Pat Oswald, they're going to boil him alive. They're going to they're going to sit back and eat popcorn while it happens. They'll be blood-soaked popcorn. I was listening to this interview that Candace Owens just did with Andrew Tate, and he was talking about Vlad the Impaler. And that's a PR stunt. Vlad the Impaler impaling his own people in order to terrorize potential invaders, sending out a strong signal. But reportedly, he dined beneath the impaled corpses and, according to some accounts, dipped the bread in the blood. Lean Dion says, I think white hats is in the Masonic lexicon. Yeah, white hats are the 33rd degree. Plain Decoded says, I forgot Trump was still president. Yeah, he's secret president. That way we can all see how bad things are under Biden, and then he's going to take over and be the real president. But then doesn't that mean that he's doing the bad things? Like, I have to beat you up and tear you down in order to show you how good I am. Like, there's some kind of toxic relationship there as well between the cult of Trump's personality and the legions of Trumpanzees. And speaking of this whole Trump thing and how it's all winding down, the Q thing's winding down, there's something up with Nick Fuentes, and I find him to be repulsive, and nobody likes him. But it's worth listening, or at least noting what he's up to now, because it seems like he's instigating his little army of, quote, groypers, is what you call them. Groypers, the frog people, to try to steal 10,000 votes from Trump. But before I played this short clip from him, listen to this. There's drama surrounding Nick Fuentes as he's telling people not to vote. Remember, he's on film telling people to take the Capitol on January 6th, but he was not detained. Like Ray Epps. It seems suspicious. So like Ray Epps, he got away with it. It says, I'll stay away from his drama. There are imposters in our midst. Think for yourself. But what he's referring to is on January 6th, Nick Fuentes was there at the Capitol telling people to tear down the barriers, to run in, to storm the Capitol. He was instigating. So was Alex Jones. Why weren't these two arrested? Interesting question. I'm going to play this just so you know. Here's where he's going.
So then I say, all right, yeah, Nick Fuentes has no place in the GOP. Well, I'll take all my followers and I'll go to Michigan and we'll do things I won't disclose now. And maybe we'll prevent 10,000 people from voting.
We'll go to Michigan. So he's talking about getting his group of groypers who won't be relevant if Trump loses. So this is like the last gasp. And he says they're going to go to Michigan and prevent 10,000 votes. Well, how do you prevent people from voting? It sounds very illegal anyway on the face of it. Are you going to be involved in a movement that's going to try to stop votes from a guy who said storm the Capitol? So this is looking very much like Nick Fuentes is instigating something
that otherwise would have voted Republican. If Trump follows through, he gets Michigan. If he doesn't, I'll take it. I'll take it. And they say, you'll hand the country to Kamala. I know.
So he's willing to hand the country to Kamala to make a point because he won't be accepted in the GOP. But I'm suggesting, because this is, again, boring blue pill political discourse, repeated stuff from 2016, but I'm suggesting that this is setting the stage for a psyop, where they're going to fake some event and blame it on some disaffected former Trump supporter who realize that they're going to lose, and so they're going to be on the wrong end of everything. They're just going to have to make some kind of final stand. And I think Fuentes being associated with this kind of rhetoric is highly interesting. Joined by Infinite Jack. Thanks for joining. This is 8/16/2024. I'll continue through my notes. No joke, The Onion says, print is the future of media. That's certainly true for us. Hey, here's an actual quote. Ask why he's not in jail. Quote, keep moving towards the Capitol. It appears we're taking the Capitol. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. Now, we are forcibly affecting them from the people's house. That's a direct quote from Nick Fuentes on the steps of the Capitol. Those are straight instructions. And it was his BFF, Ollie Alexander, aka Scammy Davis Jr., who organized Stop the Steal. No coincidences. I watched this conversation between Andrew Tate and Candace Owens, and I took a few notes. I may do a full review. I'm still listening to it. I'm just trying to figure out where they're at. It's everything you would expect. She's selling Andrew Tate as a positive influence. And even if you don't believe that he was a human trafficker, it's pretty undeniable that he is an instructor or taught courses on how to be a psychopath and an abuser and a control freak, which isn't really all that nice. But newly converted Catholic Candace Owens was describing some writer from the New York Times who called her bat shit crazy. And in defense of this writer at the New York Times, Candace Owens is bat guano crazy. But apparently you can't say that, because it made her really mad. And she said, and I have a quote here, and I'll bring audio clips tomorrow. She said she wants this writer to crawl into a hole and die. And then she said it again. Okay, Barry Rice. She needs to crawl into a hole and die, literally. And it's at 12 minutes and 39 seconds. I may be able to find the clip if you want to hear it, but I just want to, does it sound like a Catholic? Someone who just converted, Christ is King, Like, is this something that Christ the King would say? So let's go ahead and take a short listen to Candace Owen describing how somebody who called her bat guano insane needs to die.
Now, when I meet people, I want to know who they were in high school. I think it's the most significant time in your life. I want to know who you were in high school, because it's somehow you see that their characteristics, they just reemerge later on in life. And right now, what we're fighting is a system of losers, right? Who are writing their articles.
Okay, here it is. She's getting heated, and she's talking about this specific writer, Barry Rice.
They hate people that are self-confident.
And she...
I said that the data says this, and I'm smart, and I went to Columbia. I don't care if you went to... I literally don't care. You are the dumbest person. I would never follow you, right? You couldn't lead a marching band, right? And somehow you think that writing articles in the Daily Mail, calling me names, case in point, New York Times former writer Barry Weiss. Candace, it's that insane. You are...
Yeah, Candace is bat-ass insane. That's free speech. Conservatives used to defend free speech, but now you can't call Candace Owens bat guano insane? Yes, I can, because she is, demonstrably. I can prove it in many different ways. Or she's an actress pretending to be insane, but either way, you wouldn't be wrong for describing this character, this person, as insane. So she's really mad at this writer, but listen to what she says, and I'm just saying, it makes me doubt her Catholicism or her commitment to her Lord and faith, because it seems like she's making a mockery of it.
You're like a weird loser, lesbian, can crawl in a hole. Literally, Barry Weiss, you could crawl in a hole and die. I could care less. And I say that knowing that there's going to be, how could you say, literally, she could crawl in a hole and die.
Literally crawl in a hole and die for calling you insane. Like, I'm sorry, that's an overreaction. Now, we'll skip over the rest of it. I have some quotes from Andrew Tate, but basically he's an alt-right figurehead who's espousing these values that he never quite lived, but now he espouses them. But I'll do a full review tomorrow. I can't say it was all that interesting. Don Petit tweeted this today. 1 in a million. Unknown to me at the time, this photograph I took on Expedition 30 in 2012 was the ISS, because I guess they take a ton of photos, but this is their 1 millionth photo. So what you're looking at here, this photo here was the ISS's 1 millionth photo taken in 2012 by Don Petit. Now, this doesn't look real to me. If it looks real to you, I have some questions for you, because to me this is so obviously some kind of a green screen or entirely a CGI construct. This is so fake. But I'm just pointing out that let's just pretend this is real for a moment, because they do. Look how clear it is. You can read all the letters. You can read all the markings on the equipment, the labels. There's no detail occulted here. This is like very clear visibility. In fact, you can see down to the earth, and you can see patches of dry land, you can see green, you can see lakes. So you can see details. 300 miles, clear vision. I'm bringing this up as an example for contrast, because when you look at underwater space, or the spacewalks rather, when you look at the spacewalks from the video feed, you cannot see more than 100 feet into the distance. Whenever they're doing a docking, whenever the object that's docking moves away from the ship or comes to the ship, it disappears into the darkness, not too far away. So there's a huge contrast. So look at this picture, and then we'll compare the two. So this picture is a spacewalk. It looks like they're in a dark cave, and you cannot see 50 feet past them. And yet, with Don Petit's photo, you can see for 300 miles. So what's the difference between the two? Here's the difference. When they do spacewalks, they fake them underwater in their neutral buoyancy laboratory. That's the difference. Look at the clarity of the photograph that he took. And now look at these astronauts in a spacewalk. Why is it so dark? This is a photograph. This isn't even one of their on helmet cameras. This is someone else photographing it. But look at the discrepancy. Now, the next thing, the reason why it looks like this is called light loss. So if you look up any scuba diver at night, like the ones who like to watch like manta rays mating 40 feet below, you see the exact same lighting. You have a hot spot, you have diffusion, and then you have darkness immediately behind them. So why does outer space look like they're in the bottom of a swimming pool with the lights turned off? Anybody have any explanation? And also I'd want to ask, why are there bubbles in space? Has anybody solved that mystery yet? And there's no bubbles in space when they do these high-def clear photographs. And again, we know the answer, because spacewalks are done underwater. Lean Dion says, Tate is Cypher from the Matrix. Agreed. Jay Diggs says, he never trespassed in the Capitol, no charge. Yeah, but that's incitement. Like, Nick Fuentes should be in jail. Alex Jones should be in jail, but it's not real. The QAnon shaman should be mad, because he's the one who said Q sent me. Well, Q never went to jail. And why is the media so incurious about the identity of Q? I let Laura Loomer, Milo Yiannopoulos, I let all these people who pretend to be journalists who break stories, Project Veritas, I let them all know, and nobody says anything. CMG's 501 says maybe there's water above. I've heard that argument, that maybe they're actually in the waters above, and that's why they look like they're in scuba gear. But here's the thing. The spacesuit doesn't have fins. So if you were underwater in a spacesuit in space, let's say you're in space and the water's above, you wouldn't be able to navigate like they do. The way they're moving presupposes that you have scuba divers moving them into place, just like in the training lab. You need the flippers. They don't have flippers. So if they were really going into water up above, they would have flippers. Or there would be scuba divers behind them who are staying out of the shot, which makes zero sense. Thrustazar says, how many astronauts have drowned in the pool? That's a good question. Wasn't there an astronaut that drowned or nearly drowned in space? I mean, there's a couple stranded right now. Okay, let me find that. Astronaut helmet fills with water. Yeah, here's one. NASA halts spacewalks after water leaks. Now, how would that happen? They're in space. NASA's halting all spacewalks, this was 2 years ago, at the ISS over concerns about the safety of decades-old spacesuits after water leaked in the helmet while working outside the station.
European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer was wrapping up a 7-hour-long spacewalk outside the International Space Station when he noticed water leaking into his helmet.
I think we should accelerate the steps to get him out of the suit here.
They got him out, but the incident in March of this year was eerily similar to what happened to an Italian astronaut back in 2013.
I feel a lot of water on the back of my head.
Water from the cooling tubes inside Luca Parmitano's spacesuit was leaking into his helmet, and he almost drowned.
For a couple of minutes there, maybe more than a couple of minutes.
Okay, now look at the CGI hair. These special effects, if you're a special effects person, if you do video editing, you're lying to yourself if you don't see what this is. I've seen some commercials that use the same effect with these mermaids, but this is not what the hair looked like in the ISS movie. They didn't want to do this because it would have given away the game. So in the ISS movie, it was all tied back, slicked back, no loose hairs. It is so phony and fake. This is worse than Medusa's hair. People who find this as evidence are laughable to me. I mean, at this point, it's just sad. Again, there's no intellectual nor moral high ground in being visually illiterate and not being able to tell, A, when you're being lied to with a magic show, or B, when you're looking at special effects. It's like, you can't be PSYOP aware or even aware of propaganda unless you account specifically for special effects. If you're not accounting for special effects in your nightly news, you don't have a full perspective. You don't have enough information to judge it as real. Like you say, oh, I believe the news, it's real. You don't have enough information on any story. Prove it to me. Like, you believe this story and you have no evidence other than the screen, you're only and merely a low info believer. If you had high info, you wouldn't believe. So, anyway, drowning in space is a risk. What's going to happen with those two up in the Calypso? Monkeypox cases rising, you should be worried. Sweden reports first case. And again, the Vince Vaughn movie, Bad Monkey, just came out on the same day. Another example of concurrent programming. Trump says that Iran was behind his campaign hack.
Looking at it, and they're doing it very professionally, and it looks like it's Iran doing it because...
So for some reason, Iran's being brought onto the chessboard. Viva Frey on InfoWars says that the deep state may assassinate Kamala Harris for sympathy since they failed to kill Trump. So this is the state of trutherism right now. Second shooters, speculation based on this mythical deep state. There is no deep state. There's no white hats. There's no deep state. There's only the state.
If I had to think like a scoundrel, what they noticed after the failed assassination attempt on Trump was an immediate spike in his popularity, an almost heroic rise, not just nationally, but internationally. You know, they were making anime cartoons about Trump dodging the bullet. And when you see the sympathy and the public outcry in response to a failed assassination attempt, you know, they could play that game. They can play that game on what they know to be.
Is it me, or has InfoWars done nothing but speculate about Trump assassination and other assassinations, Biden assassinations? They've been doing this for months and months and months. And they did this in 2015, 2016. In fact, back in 2015, Alex Jones cried because he said Donald Trump is literally the reincarnation of George Washington, and they're going to kill George Washington. Super emotional. So it's all recycled. So if it feels redundant and recycled, it's because it is. The simulation is not the territory. That was from yesterday. A lot of great callers. I can't apologize to those who've been banned if they've been banned for good reason. The best I can say is email me with a link, and I might pull you out of the dungeon before tomorrow's live stream, but you have to email me at infiniteplanesociety@gmail.com. Thurstazar says there's no saving the Q folk, the cult. Their irrationality is irredeemable. You can't. No, you can't. A good example is this. The Oath Keepers. Stuart Rhodes, the guy with the eye patch, founded the Oath Keepers. Well, his son has been outspoken against the Oath Keepers and the whole Trump thing anyway, the Q thing rather. And he said that the Q movement is a government-created psyop religion, and he suggested that it was partially based on Seventh-day Adventism. And what that church was about was the idea that they were predicting the return of Christ. And they had this big day where they said he was going to show up. They called it the Great Disappointment. And here's my point. William Miller proclaimed Jesus Christ would return to earth on October 22nd, 1844. Now, it didn't happen. But the fact it didn't happen didn't end their religion. It only just began. So the fact that JFK didn't show up on 11/22/2021 at Dealey Plaza, the fact that Great Awakening hasn't happened, they're just going to kick the can down the road. And this prophecy thing, where people stay on the hook for it, it all comes down to addiction, like what I referenced with Tim Truth's documentary, and about the reward system and the variable schedule of intermittent reward. That's what we're looking at. And there's this very specific fallacy called the gambler's fallacy that I think plays into this. It says, it's also known as the Monte Carlo fallacy, occurs when an individual erroneously believes that a certain random event is less or more likely to happen based on the outcome of a previous series of events. So how this works in gambling is, I just spent $5,000 in the slot machine, so it's that much closer to a big win. It's like a sunk cost, but it's going to have to balance out statistically at some point. So I'm just going to keep investing and expect it to change. Well, it's true that in the long term, it's going to balance out. But as I think Carl Sagan said, he said probability is chunky, or clumpy is what he said. So you may have big clumps of losing, big clumps of winning, but it balances out. But just because you had a losing streak or a winning streak gives you no predictive capability for what's about to happen next. And with prophecies, it's the same thing. Oh, it didn't come true this year, but this, and this matched up, so it's more likely to happen next year. There's no way it doesn't happen after that, because every year you're that much closer to the eventual change when it reverses course. And this fallacy is based on this inherent feeling that there's a balancing force in nature, that things are going to even out, and that you can predict based on this, which you can't. The coin toss. The gambler's fallacy can be illustrated by considering the repeated toss of a fair coin, and the outcomes in different tosses are statistically independent. So again, you can't predict it. A bunch of losses doesn't mean the next one's going to win. Or the prophecy not coming true in 1844 doesn't mean it's going to come true in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. But as you can see, collectively, that faith is held on. And so is there any reason to think Q is going to go away? Probably not. Okay, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow, and if you want to be involved in the IPR Press Club, the Discord link is at ips.monster, and the tickets for AutoHoaxCon, there's no rush on it, it's in September, but we'll have a count daily on how many people have picked up tickets, because it's a Zoom conference, and the more people who buy tickets, the more flexibility I'll have when it comes to the day of the event. So far, we have 2 ticket holders. I want to say thanks. You'll get the links emailed to you at noon on that day, and proceeds are going to go to the documentary crew, live guests, books, getting this thing recorded professionally. And this is AutoHoaxCon #1, because there's going to be a lot more to follow. But this is the impact day for this world stage killer, AH92824. Have a great evening.